Just say the words Pokemon investing. That's it, 2 words. And I promise you, you're going to get a completely different reaction depending who you speak to. Because for some people, that whole concept makes no sense. Pokemon cards are just not an investment, full stop. Whereas the other side, which I'm actually on, is that it's awesome to see decades of knowledge about a franchise actually be used in a creative and meaningful way. And to understand how Pokemon investing works, it does take years of passion, understanding, and experience of a franchise that you're able to turn that into something valuable. That's where I think investing in Pokemon is actually awesome for a lot of us. Like for me, for you, it's not something that you need to even think about. You've played the games growing up, you've watched the anime, you know the Pokemon. In your spare time, you've probably spent hundreds of hours learning the mechanics and the lore. So when it comes to it, you're already a master in this knowledge and you can just apply it in a meaningful way. Though honestly, this video aims to be a little bit different because throughout my years of creating content and being involved with investing in collectibles, I do want to talk about what I consider the 7 biggest mistakes to avoid, or as I'm calling in this video, the 7 deadly sins of Pokemon investing, which you want to avoid. Honestly, I figured these out from not only years of investing in Pokemon, but also years of making content and having so many different perspectives. And what's really cool about this video is that essentially these rules are a little bit timeless in a way. It doesn't matter whether you're watching it in an upwards market or a downwards market, this video is going to be genuinely useful for years to come. So moving on to the first deadly sin, or the biggest mistake, it is chasing hype instead of heritage. Heritage is something important that gets passed down over, like from generations, from older to younger generations. Think of this as traditions, stories, history, and the like. And what's really funny is Pokemon is unique as it has a lot of this. There's actually a big split between the different audiences of Pokemon, and there's actually a lot of history and tradition of the people who or the collectors and the players who all started with the first generation of Pokemon, and how that's kind of changed throughout the years. Though one issue that you want to avoid, and this is very important, is buying into hype periods and hype phases that essentially don't have that heritage backing. What happens in Pokemon collecting, and it's very important to understand, is that you have a lot of content creators speaking about the topic, you have a lot of people who are interested in the hobby, and certain trends or hype periods can start out of thin air that really don't have much weight to them. The best way for you to understand if there's a hype phase that feels like, oh wow, it's really powerful and genuine, is if it links with a bit of that heritage or history with Pokemon. For example, when we look at something like Bubble Mew. Bubble Mew was always, like, to me, that makes complete sense why it's become such a massive phenomenon in the Pokemon collecting world, because Mew has so much history. It has that heritage. It has that deep kind of traditions with the franchise. Mew, for a lot of, especially the OGs playing, that was like, to get a Mew in your game, that was something crazy. No one could do it. There was rumors when you went to school that Mew was hidden under a truck, that you had to go on the SS Anne. There was so much history around this, and then that kind of gets translated into the TCG. But then when you have hype phases that don't have that history behind them, or they're just created because of a social media trend, you want to get good at avoiding that. I've seen so many throughout these years, and I'm not going to just be listing all the hype phases that have come, because depends. You might be watching this video when it releases. This video might be something that you watch a year after it's released, but I can guarantee you, if you've been in the hobby long enough, you would have seen a hype train, whether that's a cameo Pokemon card phase or a certain illustrator that just is now in the limelight for some reason. What you really need to do, and it's a very important area of Pokemon, is to make sure that hype, or if there's a hype around a certain card, that it's linking with that history. If it doesn't have that, you do want to avoid, and don't make the mistake of just buying into a hype train because you see it online. Also, by the way, if you have been loving the video, my name's Phil and I create content around Pokemon cards and Pokemon investing. Honestly, if you've been enjoying the video, I'd love to have you subscribe to join the journey. Okay, moving on to this second massive mistake that should be avoided, and it is treating niche products as investments. Don't ever think that you're going to be able to sell a niche item in your collection for more than you bought it for. This is a really big issue that collectors face. And if you're wondering what a niche collectible is, it's essentially a collectible that is personal to you, that you have specific history with, but the general market doesn't. Examples of this are something like a Murkrow from Neo Genesis, okay? That card right there is very nostalgic to me as a kid. I remember it was the first dark Pokemon card I ever saw. And I just remember I have really good memories from this card. And same thing with the Slowking as well, the first edition. That, to me, those cards are very memorable to me. The thing is, you may have a certain memory to that, but you also need to remember that maybe there's only a small connection of people that have that same connection to that card like you. and that's why you have to consider them much more personal. Investments are usually more tied to what has a massive audience. Think of these as the most known Pokemon cards in the era. Like for the last few years, we've seen a lot of these. Like the reality is a Mega Charizard is loved by collectors today, and it's very likely in 10 years from today, it is still going to be a very known card, as it's had a massive, profound effect on the hobby. So it's very important to understand that niche collectibles always should serve as a personal item in your collection rather than something that's going to have some crazy growth for years to come. Now, when purchasing or investing in collectibles, I always find it a good idea to have a deep understanding of Pokemon and Pokemon's history and the lore. And an awesome way to learn about the video games and deep dives is on my channel called Philip's Trick Room. On Philip's Trick Room, I recently created a video talking about Generation 5 and how it broke every rule in Pokemon and how we're still seeing the effects of that today. I'd love to have your support there. You can find all the details to Philip's Trick Room in the video's description. Now, the third mistake to be aware of is ignoring condition. Now, there's been a big shift that's changed in Pokemon cards, especially in the last few years, because the condition has become the premium. In fact, even a card that's not too expensive can have a huge price premium if it's a PSA 10 or if it's a BGS Black Label, because collectors are now fixated on condition. Though it's really important to understand, because it's not just graded cards or raw cards. Obviously, with modern raw cards, you do want to consider them, especially for investments, they need to be in pristine quality. Though more than that, even sealed product. This is a part that a lot of people kind of like don't actually put a lot of thought into, but sealed product, if you want to keep it as an investment and not open it, you do need to make sure the condition and the shrink wrap is in good condition. I've actually even seen recently, it was crazy because I was looking at buying a Destined Rivals booster box and I could see the Destined Rivals booster box was completely unopened, but it had a slight tear in the shrink wrap, and because of that, it sold for 35 USD cheaper. Now, that might be all right, cool, 35 USD today, but as the years go on, that kind of price premium compounds. If you look at something like Evolving Skies today, if an Evolving Skies booster box has a tear in it, that already will be a massive price ding from like a perfectly in an acrylic case that hasn't been touched and it looks completely immaculate. And that price premium for any damage on sealed product, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the prices increase as well. So for sealed product as well, you do need to be mindful. It's really common when a new set releases, I like to keep a few as an investment. Usually it's one or two. I don't usually go more than that. But if I do, and it's happened a lot, man, I buy something, I pre-order it, it comes in the mail, and there's a bit of damage on the box. It's happened much more than one time. And then I kind of make the decision, is it worth keeping as an investment, or should I maybe open these products? Should this be the product that I'm going to be opening? I kind of have that discussion with myself. The reality is, if there is a tear or some sort of damage on the box, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be that the cards are damaged, but if there just is some sort of little rip or anything, it kind of does damage the future potential of that as an investment. Now, moving on to the next huge mistake, it is ignoring the entry price. So one area that a lot of people mess up is the entry price of collectibles. The key area is you want to buy products and items at the lowest point to avoid overstretching yourself. Honestly, one of the best ways to do this is by pre-ordering your sets. But there is one thing that I see a lot of people doing. Now, the best way, if you do want to invest, because I think of everything as long-term. I don't ever think of anything in short-term. I have a very good mindset. My mindset is, it's kind of like, I see collectibles like a river passing. And what I mean by that is, there will be sets, depending on certain times in my life, that I will probably not be able to buy more than one set. And everything is a long kind of play. What I mean by this is, you don't want to now think, I missed Destined Rivals, it's out of reach. I'm going to now pay whatever I have to pay over market to get that into my collection and then put myself in a difficult position. You do want to just have that kind of feeling of, it's like, okay, maybe I wasn't there when Destined Rivals was released and I would have got it for a good price, but maybe I'm going to be a bit more savvy and be a bit more aware when a next really cool hype set comes around. It's crazy because people, I've seen it so much in this hobby, because when Evolving Skies came out, everyone said Evolving Skies is never going to be top. That was just a very fluke that it happened, and evolutions and the whole like. And guess what? In 2023, what happened? Well, Pokemon 151 came out and people didn't really expect it to be bigger than Evolving Skies. But now I'd say 151 is pretty much on the same level, if not in a lot of ways even more in demand than Evolving Skies. And then with Pokemon 151 and how incredible it was and all that, everyone was like, oh no, 151, when are we going to get a set that matches that? And then after 151, Destined Rivals came, and then we had Ascended Heroes, and it keeps continuing. The biggest thing you don't want to do is try and play catch up with sets. It's very important. If you do like a set and you do want to buy it, just consider it during that time period if you can get it. And if you play the long game, like personal experience, I remember I was moving homes at the time when Destined Rivals released, and I was actually moving interstate, so I had to pack up whole bag. I was moving 2,000 kilometers away from home, okay? And when Destined Rivals came out, I knew it was a Team Rocket throwback. I knew, like, dude, in terms of like growth for this set, it's gonna be crazy. I wasn't able to buy more than one booster box at the time. It was one of those seasons in life where I wasn't able to buy more than one booster box, but that's okay. And that's why you also need to understand that if you are buying collectibles, think of it in the seasons. There's gonna be a season where you can buy maybe 3 booster boxes. There's gonna be one that maybe you need to miss out. You're not at the right time to buy that, and that's okay. It's all about playing the long game. Now, moving on to the next mistake. It is beginning to sell rapidly during a market downturn or buying at an upturn. This is so common and I see it all the time. When prices start dropping a little bit, collectors try to offload everything because they think there's gonna be some massive market crash. But at the same time, when prices also start going up, they do the same thing. It all happens, but in reverse. They start buying things and paying over what they should be because there's a market and there's a hype swing. And this is the mind frame you need to get into. You don't want to be, this hobby is so crazy. There is noise coming in from every angle. You just need to be solid in your convictions and in your strength and be like, okay, I can see prices are dropping. It doesn't bother me. I'm not gonna even look at the graphs. I'm not gonna even look at that. But at the same time, if some card starts getting crazy hypes, you also don't need to now fork out insane amounts of money and be like, oh, the hype's there. I've got to buy it now because it's now or never. I've been here long enough to know, and a lot of collectors who've been in the game for a while know that, hey, just wait it out and just have that kind of nice free-flowing energy when it comes to purchasing collectibles. You're gonna miss some, and guess what? There is no collector in this space that can have it all. You just cannot have it all. Now, the next mistake that should be avoided is having an over-diversification in every TCG. So diversification is seen as an important area, but I want to talk to you about something that's even more important, and that is mastery. As the famous quote goes from Bruce Lee, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. That mastery in one area makes you far stronger. Don't think by buying every TCG on the market and having your hands in every single pot that's a smart play. The reason I'm telling you that is because I've actually made that mistake so many times. I mean, I still have Yu-Gi-Oh products that I bought that I thought would be real big sleeper hits. And some of these were bought 4 and 5 years ago, and a lot of them haven't even moved anywhere. In fact, I could probably sell them for less than I bought them for. And the thing is, with Pokemon and what's happening, because it can be sometimes quite challenging to buy, depending on the era of Pokemon cards, people do go, oh, I'm gonna try really diversify my TCGs. But you gotta remember, Pokemon has so much history and they've been in the game for such a long time. You don't want to just be putting your hands in every pot. It's not just the smartest thing to be over diversified in crazy ways. You do want to have that thing where, like I said, it is much better to master the one area, master the Pokemon. Maybe you're going to master grading, but it's like having that mastery of one area. Now, the final big mistake is treating all your collectibles as emotional attachments and then expecting that the market is also going to react the same way. One big thing in this hobby, you do need to learn the emotional aspects of the hobby. Meaning, yes, you're going to place a lot of memories of certain cards, or maybe you're going to remember how you acquired the card, or there's going to be a special moment about that card, but you need to think of it as a buyer and not your personal decisions or your personal connections. And that is really important to understand. Your emotions matter a lot in this hobby, but this hobby is driven so much by emotions, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a higher price because you like a certain card. Everything is dictated by the market. The reason why collectibles are such an interesting area for me, and the reason why I have such a deep love for this area, is because every other area in terms of investments, that emotional side is everyone just goes, no, I'm buying this for profit, this, the gain. But when it comes to cards and collectibles, there is so much emotion there. There's so much history. Like I was talking about that heritage before, that's all there. All those connection points are there. So it is really good that you do need to have a bit of that. I don't want to use the word stoic, but you do need to be like, hey, okay, I love that card. I love that. If I do want it in my collection, I'm okay with it. But if I need to sell it as well, I'm okay, and I'm not going to expect anything more. I'm not going to get disheartened if it didn't get the price that I wanted it to sell for, because you always have to look at it, what the market is willing to pay. And it's really important that you kind of have a good grasp of that situation, because otherwise you can really get disappointed over the long term. And it's just an important thing. I get it, man. Like, emotions in this hobby are massive. Please, I'm an emotional guy. I'm so emotional. I look at my collections and I'm like, oh my God. Like, my wife sometimes goes like, Phil, why don't we sell, like, let's do the kitchen, Phil. You know what I mean? We can renovate a little bit. Like, why don't you just sell that PSA 10 card? And I'm just like, oh, what are you talking about? You think I'm going to get rid of that? No way, honey. Come on. I got the connection with it. But what I'm trying to tell you is, if you do have those connections and you love those cards, just try and be fluid with it rather than being so heavily attached to it, because it is good to sell as well, especially if you're achieving life goals. And I do talk about that in a lot of my videos, but if you've got a big, high, top overarching goal and you want to sell because of that, always a great decision. Though in saying that, emotions are an important aspect in this hobby as well, because we're dealing with like decades of nostalgia. And because of that, a lot of people tend to overspend in the hobby, though I've actually found it very important to not overspend. And I've created some genuinely useful budget tips when it comes to collecting in those videos on screen here. When you click on this video, you're going to be able to see how to collect Pokemon cards on a budget. If you have loved this video, you're going to find the video that's appearing on screen very useful. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Appreciate you watching.